According to the United Nations, in 2020, the trade volume between Uganda and Nigeria was approximately $25.5 million. Of this, Uganda exports to Nigeria were valued at $3.1 million, while its imports from Nigeria were valued at $22.4 million. We talked to Ambassador Nelson Ocheger, the Ugandan ambassador to Nigeria, and Ambassador Ismail Ayobami Alatise, the Nigerian High Commissioner in Uganda, expounding more on this trade imbalance and the goal of the forthcoming Nigeria-Uganda Business Forum in Kampala.
We're definitely here to talk about business and the relations that we both have as Uganda and Nigeria. Well, we see our bilateral ties coming back from way back in since our independence, okay? But along the way, a number of trade agreements, a number of trade relations have been happening. It so happens that Uganda is on the lesser side, I must say, for lack of a better word, because we import a lot more from Nigeria than we export to them. But without breaking the ice, I would like to start off maybe with Ambassador, Your Excellency. What are the current challenges faced by Nigerian SMEs so far that you have realized since your tenure in 2022? And what measures are being taken to address them?
Well, thank you very much for that question. Let me first reflect over our bilateral relation. Like you rightly said, since our independence, which was just 2 years apart, Nigeria gained independence in 1960, and then 2 years after, Uganda also followed suit. Our bilateral relation has been very, very warm and cordial, but my observation when I arrived here last year was that in spite of all these years of warm, cordial relations, I could not see what I regard as the core element of any bilateral relation, which is the economic cooperation, trade and investment. I see that it's just extremely low. And now going to your question, yes, I found some Nigerians who are doing business here, but of course the challenges they are faced with are enormous. But prominently, I would say it has to do with the issue of tariff, taxes and all the rest, which they have complained to me is really, really affecting their business, to grow. So when you talk about what are the challenges or the major challenges, I would say tariff issue, but we know generally when you talk about, international trade, tariff is an issue, is a barrier everywhere. And for us Africans, it's one of the things that even at the AU level, we are now talking about, that we want to bring down all these barriers, one of them being the issue of tariff, and of course non-tariff challenges are also there. But generally speaking, we are talking about all the barriers, because if we really want to do business together, which is very, very important, we are having the dream of having a continental economy, that will be integrated. We cannot achieve that if we do not look into these various barriers and see how we can bring them down. Then another issue is the fact that we do not have direct flights between the two countries. So transport is an issue. But I can tell you that the two of us, we have been working tirelessly, relentlessly, to make sure that very soon there will be direct flight between the two countries.
So now let me take the question to Ambassador representing us in Nigeria. What is your overview of our bilateral ties, especially when it comes to the economy, and how are Ugandan businesses faring in Nigeria? What is your overview?
When it comes to the economic issues, I think the main challenge that the businesses in Uganda are facing to do business in Nigeria has to do with the high cost of doing business. Starting from movement of goods from Uganda to Nigeria, which currently has to be either by air or by sea. If it is by air, We don't have a direct flight. And therefore, the products have to move from here, probably to Addis Ababa, probably to Nairobi, and then to Nigeria, or to Dubai, and then to Nigeria. By the time the product reaches in Nigeria, the cost is high. So the person who has imported that product may not be able to realize full profit.
Yes.
So, but what are we doing to address that problem?
Did you start from there?
Yes,
What are
we
doing?
have successfully gained permission from the authorities in Nigeria for Uganda Airlines to begin operations in Lagos and in Abuja. So the ball now is in the course of the Uganda Airlines to work as soon as possible to commence those operations. The other challenge, which obviously is also with the SMEs of Nigeria and Uganda, is the tariffs. Both and the non-tariff barriers. We are talking in terms of taxation, and under taxation we are looking at double taxation.
Yeah.
We are looking at challenges of standardization.
By any chance, do we have any double tax agreements with Nigeria?
We have got a trade agreement with Nigeria,
This was signed
but
in 2013.
but that agreement is obsolete. We need to review it. And I must report that together with my brother, we have started the process of reviewing not just that agreement, but all other agreements. But there is a silver lining, and that is the framework of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area.
And
That framework
yeah.
challenges us, both in the public and the private sector, to leverage, to take advantage of it, and address the things we are talking about. If we implemented the Africa Continental Free Trade Area to the letter, we will address the question of tariffs, we will address the question of non-tariff barriers, we will address the question of transportation, we will address the cost of movement of persons from East to West Africa or within Africa. And once you address all those challenges, inevitably you will reduce the cost of doing business. And once you reduce the cost of business, then the products and the services will begin to move in big volumes from Uganda to Nigeria.
I would love to ask, in your opinion, and I'll start off with Ambassador. In your opinion, what specific areas of cooperation then and investment offer the most significant potential growth and development between Uganda and Nigeria?
Thank you very much. If you want to zero it down to the SMEs, like you started, I would say my pick would be the agricultural sector. You know, I've traveled to one or two places outside Uganda. Specifically, let me mention my experience in Mbali. I had the opportunity of meeting the members, well, let's cross-section of the members of the Ugandan National Chamber of Commerce, you know, the Mbali chapter. I had a meeting with them. And what transpired in that meeting suggested to me that we have a number of SMEs whose area is in the agric. They grow certain foods, they have certain crops that they have, and they want to see how they can sell their products or produce or farm produce, you know, outside Uganda. But some of them, when I spoke with them, they said they never knew it's possible for them to trade with Nigeria. And I said, no, why is it not possible? It's possible if only we are interested and if only we really mean it. And I told them how we can go about this. And I explained to them that is one of the things that myself and my colleague in Abuja are trying to facilitate for them. So I will pick agric, you know, as one sector that offers a lot of opportunity for the Nigerian SMEs and the Uganda SMEs to be able to, you know, to team together and see how they can increase the volume of trade between the two of them. And then in that way, they will also be assisting us in increasing the volume of trade between the two countries.
But I'll throw that a little back to you. What incentives or policies can Nigeria provide to encourage more Ugandan SMEs to invest in Nigeria?
Yeah, in Nigeria, there are a number of government policies in terms of incentives. For example, there's exemption from company tax, maybe depending on the volume of the turnover, revenue turnover of a particular company. I think it is pegged at 25 million. For those who have less than 25 million annual turnover, they enjoy this company tax exemption. There's also the tax holiday, which is also offered.
In your opinion, what are those specific areas? Because I know agriculture has been one of our biggest trade sectors, but we have other sectors like the mineral sector, the natural resources and the likes. Oil and gas is actually coming up. I would say that Nigeria is Uganda's big brother in the oil and gas sector. We have babies, we're just coming up. We are yet to expedite that sector. But I would love to hear your thoughts on, in your opinion, what specific areas of cooperation and investment offer the most significant potential growth for Ugandan businesses in Nigeria?
Given the size of our economy, which has a direct bearing on the size of the businesses that we have, the Ugandan companies may not have very good comparative advantage to invest in Nigeria, unless there is partnership that brings a number of them together to realize capital and be able to invest in Nigeria. But in the area of oil and gas, which you have made reference to, obviously, given the experience that the Nigerian private sector has in oil and gas, quite a number of them have expressed interest to do business in Uganda, both in the upper and the lower stream. Obviously, all of us are familiar with the pace at which that sector has been moving, but I am happy to say that quite a number have been expressing interest to invest in our oil and gas. But when it comes to Uganda benefiting from Nigeria, I think the area which stands out very, very clearly has to do with the Ugandan entrepreneurs, both small and medium, and even large, to take advantage of the bigger Nigerian market and sell their products there. Over time, we have had a significant number of small and medium scale and also big companies adding value to agricultural products here. We have added value to milk, we have added value to coffee, to tea, and we are producing so many poultry products. You may wish to know that Nigeria spends almost $270 million annually to import milk. But where does that milk come from? It's imported from Europe.
Wow.
But don't we produce milk here?
We do produce a lot of milk here.
Nigeria spends almost $1 billion annually to import eggs. But where from mainly? From Latin America. Nigeria spends about $55 million to import coffee and tea. Where does it come from? Again, Europe. And most of these things we are producing here. So I have challenged the Uganda Manufacturers Association to share this information with their membership and say, look, do not focus on the American, European, Middle East, and Asian market. Time has come for us to focus on African market, starting with Nigeria, which is the biggest market in the continent. That opportunity is there.
So I would love to then follow up with a question as we come to the conclusion of our interview. We're having the Nigeria-Uganda Business Summit in the coming week, and you've spoken to quite a number of stakeholders that might help this relationship be more symbiotic and, whereby we depend on each other. And I like the fact that you mentioned, discussion on agreements, because we cannot really see Nigeria continuing to import milk from Europe when countries like Uganda have excessive, products like milk, poultry feeds, and the likes. Yeah. How do you plan to expedite the business summit?
This summit provides us with an opportunity to first and foremost share information. We are going to have the public sector, we are going to have the private sector. At the public sector level, we are committed to informing the private sector that we are doing our level best to create a conducive environment for the private sector to do business. First, as he has said, the bilateral relations between our countries is excellent and it keeps on improving day by day. But we must translate those relations to benefit the Ugandans, to benefit the Nigerians. And how do they benefit? By the private sector taking advantage of this conducive environment that we are trying to create for them to do business. We will tell the private sector that there is market in West Africa, starting with Nigeria. There are opportunities for investment in Nigeria, especially in the areas of services, education, for example. We can, Ugandans with that experience can establish educational institutions in Nigeria. The market is there because currently we have not less than 3,000 Nigerian students studying in Uganda. So why not take the services near to them
True.
if that is possible? We want to share that information with them. We also want to encourage the private sector that there's an opportunity for you to invest in hospitality. There's an opportunity to invest in hospitality in Nigeria and also in Uganda. This is the information we are going to share with them so that we stop donating money to other continents. When somebody moves from one country to another for tourist purposes, you're going to spend money on the ticket, you'll spend money on accommodation, you'll be spending money on food, you will buy certain things that you want to take back home as souvenirs, and that money collectively translates into promoting the local producers within the continent. When we buy more from our people, we give them the money to expand their production, to employ more people, and to improve on the products they are producing, to improve on the services they are offering. So this forum will be an opportunity for us to first say we have an opportunity to trade together, to invest, having cross-border investments. We have an opportunity to share information on what services we can export to our respective countries. We have an opportunity which has been presented to us by the Africa Continental Free Trade Area to scale up intra-Africa trade, beginning with the trade between Uganda and Nigeria. That's what we want to achieve.
The Nigerian Ugandan Business and Investment Forum is a program that we deliberately and consciously designed. How it came up. Like I said in the beginning, when I arrived, I observed that in terms of economic and trade relation, our bilateral relation is just a non-starter. That is the way I put it. And I identified this. The first thing I did was I discussed with my colleague. I said, look, this is what I found. And it's going to be my focus throughout the period of my duty tour in Uganda. I took this to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I met with the 4 principal officers. I presented the same thing to them. They welcomed the idea. They agree with me that it's like Nigeria and Uganda, we have been sleeping over the years, that it shouldn't be like this, and that we must start from somewhere. So having secured their support, I also went to the private sector. I had a meeting with the president of the Uganda National Chamber, National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and she also agreed with me. So, and I said, okay, what I'm going to do is in order to stimulate these relations and this aspect of our bilateral relation, we need to come up with some, specific programs, that will bring the players from both countries together so that they have opportunity to network, to explore, to exchange ideas, and cross-fertilize ideas. And so that was how we came about it. So I told my colleagues, I said, look, for this year, we need to have a roadmap for our activities. And then we had a retreat. So at that retreat, that was when we came up with some of these activities. And one of them is that we must organize this year Nigeria, Uganda Business and Investment Forum. So what exactly did we plan to achieve? That is to answer your question. What we intend to achieve is, number one, to close the gap between the two communities, the Nigerian and Ugandan business community, the investors. Yeah, like the ambassador said, Nigeria is a big market. Yes, we do import quite a lot of things, but we also export a lot of things too. Then Uganda too here, I've observed, they have a lot they can export. The coffee, the milk, like you rightly said, of course, nothing stops us, from, looking at the comparative advantage. So this is one of the things that we hope this forum, or whether you call it summit or forum, is still the same thing. This is one of the things that it is going to achieve. Already we are mobilizing from both sides. In fact, I am happy to inform you that because one of the problems that we always have when we talk about export and import is the issue of standard. And I can tell you that some of the participants from Nigeria are going to come from the Standard Organization of Nigeria. So we are going to organize a meeting between them and their Ugandan counterparts so that by the time we identify, some of the commodities that we think can be exported to Nigeria and those that could be imported from Nigeria, the issue of standard will also come in immediately so that we agree on the standard, so that there won't be problem along the line when somebody or a company is trying to export and I say, oh, this one does not meet our standard. No, let us set the parameters right from the word go. So we really want to achieve this. Then again, apart from closing the gap between Nigeria and Uganda, you see, I've always believed in this idea of continental economy, that we must integrate African economy. Now, what has led to a situation where Nigeria and Uganda has this low level of trade is the general problem with Africa. We don't do business with ourselves. We have these huge markets, but we prefer to do business with Europe, with America, with Asia. The last time I checked the statistics, I discovered that the totality of Africa's, intra-trade is just about 11%. You can imagine. 11%. So about 89% is with the outside. And I also try to check the percentage of intra-trade in Europe, in America, in Asia. And I discovered that they are doing far, far better. They trade among themselves and they also trade with us. But we trade with them, we don't trade among ourselves.
That's something we didn't.
Yes. So we are undoing ourselves. We are not, this is why we are not progressing. But now that we are awake from our long slumber, we think if we begin this way, because when you say you have a wall, you must think of the bricks that make up the wall. So if you look at it from this perspective, if Nigeria and Uganda has a very strong bilateral economic and trade relation, we increase the volume. By so doing, we are assisting the intra-Africa trade. And then when you have this among all other entities in Africa, this is the way to go. And then we can begin to increase the volume of trade and businesses among ourselves. So it is also one of the things that we intend to. We want to create awareness among the participants at this coming forum that, look, we need to increase the intra-Africa trade.
So I'll take that as your parting shot. Then maybe let me now take a parting shot from Ambassador over here. And maybe also as you give your parting shot, what are some of the state bodies or organizations that we expect to see at the summit this coming week?
From the Ugandan side, the obviously the public sector is going to be represented, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Trade and Industry. Then other agencies are going to be represented, Uganda Investment Authority, Uganda Tourism Board. I would expect Uganda Export Promotion Board to be there, the zone, the Free Zone Authority, and then at the private sector level, obviously the National Chamber of Commerce and Industry should be there, and other players. We want all these stakeholders to be involved so that we create that general awareness and say, look, time has come for us as Uganda to focus not just within East Africa, where currently we are doing a lot of business with, but let us get out of East Africa and go to West Africa. The market is there.
Okay. I like that assurance, and thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of our conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in for this exclusive interview with two pristine gentlemen. I must say that it's a conversation that has been very fruitful, and we look forward to the Uganda-Nigeria Business Summit going to happen from the 2nd to the 3rd? 2nd and 3rd of May 2023. For Business Roundup, my name is Wadulo Mark Arnold, and have yourselves a lovely one.